welcome to another one of my videos today. Today we're going to be covering out on something that's pretty interesting, something that could kind of happen in the future. Also going to cover on how my parents can also affect something like that. Alright. The first thing that I do want to uncover here is I believe in the last video I was speaking last video I was speaking about my struggles and how my parents were definitely have this kind of pessimistic mindset telling me that I have to go down this path, go down that path. Really big thing right here, guys. Do not vilify them or anything like that, because ultimately we do have my parents, and I think even my own friends parents do have shared goals. Ultimately it's about finding our own life paths, and it's also about success. All right, I know the traditional critique, not traditional way is doing college and doing this or that, but ultimately speaking there's more than one way to success when it comes to it. All right, I believe in the last video, some people could misconstruct it as painting my own parents in a terrible light, but then again, there's some positive stuff about them too. Obviously, my mom, for number one, she is definitely a chill person. Not really a chill person. My dad's definitely a chill person, but my mom, definitely thank her for a lot of things, especially allowing me to have a platform on YouTube. Massive thanks to her, and being able to pay up for an editor monthly. Definitely thank her. I definitely thank her for that editing software. I definitely thank her for that, so I don't paint her in a really terrible light. I know what she means, even though she does. Even my own friends' experiences too with their own parents, they say a lot of terrible stuff with them, especially in the heat of an argument. Please do not base off my parents just based off of heat in the moment arguments. Do not paint them as terrible. Rather, they're a balance of both. All right. My parents are definitely chill people. Definitely thanks to my mom out there, and happy birthday to my dad. His birthday was like on Sunday, and definitely definitely I know that parents, especially when it comes to, can be pretty rigid in that, but definitely when it comes to, yo, please do not disrespect any of my parents or any of my friends' parents. If you guys find out where who they are, don't disrespect them either, because ultimately we just want what's best for each other, and just the way that it's done can lead to a lot of issues. All right, the reason I did all the last video about my own struggles is um I know that a lot of people can relate to it. All right, I know it's just about finding that middle ground, finding that solution. To be fair, it can be pretty difficult at times. All right, even though the best the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that's definitely kind of that does kind of show to my own friends' parents too. It's really interesting about the complex interplay that's put in it. Let me look at my notes real quick again. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong one. But don't paint my parents in a really terrible light. It's really kind of a balance of both. Don't overly criticize her and don't overly call her positive. Ultimately, it's a balance between think of like constructive criticism. All right, I'm here to definitely challenge the generational gap of autonomy versus traditionalism, because this is one that also affects me too. All right, then again, please don't hate on any of my parents or anything like that. But then again, still gotta validate both sides of the experience, you know? Alright, my struggles are real too as a result of expectations, but then again, my parents too, they're rooted in cause for good intention. Alright, but it won't always translate into good doesn't translate into good parenting. That's why find a solution for both sides. And now we're gonna translate autonomy versus traditionalism into a whole different issue. Alright, so we're gonna cover out on the complex interplay between my future partner and my let's say what could happen in the future. So the really interesting interplay here is that there are a lot of outcomes that could happen. I'm gonna cover the first one here. All right, so number one, y'all. Oh, expectations of a future partner. That's just I shouldn't be covering that only because it's in my notes now. I'm probably gonna say yes to it. All right. So number one, y'all. Let me pull out my phone real quick. See how I covered this in my notes here. So expectations for a future partner. I'm only saying this because it's on my notes. I or she needs to align with my goals of core values, definitely. Autonomy, nuance, and definitely a balance of both good and bad. Number one has two, they have to like me back, and most importantly, won't leave me in debt. Alright. So that's a really interesting interplay that I'm going to show out later on. The last one, number four, is doesn't cheat. Alright, stays loyal. What's really interesting about this is that we're gonna cover on the definitely most importantly won't leave me in debt. Obviously that's a little bit ambiguous here, so let's go and let me go ahead and cover with that. What I mean by that is that there's definitely a complex interplay once again. The challenge of autonomy versus traditionalism also translates into other parenting habits, especially if my own girlfriend's parents kind of have that mentality. I know they're probably watching this right now, but we're just covering on the uncomfortable issue only because that's my intrinsic nature. I love to cover uncomfortable issues. But covering it right now, it's really interesting about the complex interplay because then again, my own girlfriend could also be covered, could also be under this dangerous pattern too. Think of like unconditional love, but then again, conditional love. But it's just a weird interplay looking at it again. Okay, for example, her parents are forcing her to go to college and pursue this or that based off of stereotypes. She can Okay, wait. So, okay, now I get where I'm going now. I get where my mind's actually trying to head myself to. What's really interesting about this is that there's definitely a big and complex interplay looking at it because my partner again might also match out with my own values, or I might even match with my own partner's values if they're similar enough. The problem is there's an interplay here that if they're forcing my girlfriend to take college, take this course or that, you won't succeed. Or if you go into the unknown, it's all going to all collapse away. That's a really interesting interplay here that I'm now covering on autonomy versus traditionalism. Well, once again, that's a little bit too close. Looking at this again, I think that's definitely where the ambiguity, where it says "won't leave me in debt," is. It's a really interesting interplay here, is because if her parents end up, I know this is like really uncomfortable, but this is a truth that could one day be. This could be an estimation of what one day could be a truth. The big problem is here. When you already add parents that are already authoritative. All right, it's really interesting how I'm going to say this right here. If her parents are forcing her to do this or that, and she wants to do something else, she wants to maybe like take trade school or maybe do something else. She doesn't want to go to college, and they're forcing her. They might even add the threat of "I'll kick you out at the age of 18 if you don't do this or that." I think that's a really interesting interplay here that's going to happen if I do end up having someone like this. It's really interesting looking at it because number one, if YouTube makes me rich enough, maybe not YouTube, if I take a real job, maybe if I get enough money to save up for an apartment, like let's say I'm eventually kicked away from my own house, not my own house, from my parents' house. That's really interesting here is that their parents will probably force their daughter, which is my girlfriend, to kick them out. If you're not taking this life path, they might say, quote unquote, if you're not taking this, then you can take this instead. What's really interesting here, what I put in my response here is that, quote unquote, if I do get my own apartment, if I eventually, even if I'm rich enough to buy like a house or something, like let's say there's like a one in 100,000 trillion chance that there's a house that's down the block for selling for like what, $20,000, even though that's what probably impossible. That's probably going to be the cost of rent nowadays. Uh, it's really interesting. If I do end up getting some sort of hut or shelter, I think that's really interesting part. Would I allow her to live with me? If she doesn't cheat, then absolutely yes, y'all. Really looking at the interplay in this future situation, yes, she can choose to live with me. If her parents ultimately kick her out at the age of 18 without anything, then yes, if I do once I do get my own little hut or little apartment, she can definitely choose to live with me, and we'll live out our 20s finding out who we are. All right, and that's looking at it again. This is just one of the thousands and thousands of outcomes that could ever happen. All right, because it's really, this highlights on the generational divide, especially if the parents have a resistance to change. Looking at it again, if her parents are forcing her to go to college and pursue this based off of stereotypes, uh let's say that they're resistant to having such nuance, all right, knowing that they can still live off of this life path and still be successful. I think that's really highlighting the key point here, is that there is a divide. There is a generational divide of autonomy versus traditionalism. If it's not balanced, if both parties cannot collaborate with each other, then ultimately we're kind of at a standstill, kind of something like that. Ultimately, kicking out of them definitely may happen. The girlfriend might probably seek shelter from me. I may even get kicked out of my own house eventually. Not my own house. Oh my god, I might kick. kicked out of my own parents' house because I'm talking about such an uncomfortable topic. But then again, this is out of the hundreds of outcomes. This is what could happen. So yeah, we definitely, for my girlfriend, I definitely choose her. She can definitely live with me in my apartment if I can keep the rent stable, maybe. Heck, rent in what 2035 is can probably be like $30,000 a month, and you still have to pay for what bills and stuff like that, crazy stuff. But I think that's it's really weird episode here, but ultimately this was on my notes, so I mean whatever goes on my notes goes onto videos, so it's really interesting. This is one of the outcomes that could happen. Yes, I would definitely allow my girlfriend to live with me in my own apartment if I do ever get one. But ultimately speaking, on this is an uncomfortable truth. All right, this is uncomfortable truth about real life because ultimately we don't know what's going to happen. All right, heck, I don't even know what tomorrow is gonna offer. No matter how analytical I am, y'all, human behavior and stereotypes are definitely of a challenge to me because number one, they are absolutely unpredictable. Chemistry and love is absolutely unpredictable for me. All right, it's really because I'm a teen too, so I mean I already have still leaves me in a lot of interest looking at it again. But that's also really interesting because it touches on that those two major topics. Allowing my girl to live with me will definitely pose its benefits and non-benefits. Obviously, number one, if our personalities are similar enough, I mean, sure, it's probably gonna be like seamless integration. But then again, you'd also get that fear because even though you're kicked out, you'd still get that strong connection to your own home. You definitely get that strong. You want to move back to your own house, crawl back to your parents, because ultimately it's where you grew up in. But ultimately, y'all, it's about overcoming that fear of change. Because number one, it's impermanent. I won't be in high school forever. I won't always be eating shrimp forever. I won't always be making YouTube videos forever. Ultimately, I'll be looking at one thing in between the makings of each video. It's really interesting. It's the impermanence of high school drama. It's the impermanence of ultimately life. It touches on that issue too, philosophically speaking. Heck, I might even be forced to move apartments if the rent really gets like what $40,000 a month in like 2035 or something like that. It's really interesting here is because inflation just kind of stupid in my well, it's not exactly stupid, but it's just kind of unreasonable, especially when prices tend to stay the same even when inflation rates go down. It's really interesting here because that's one of the hundreds and thousands of the infinite possibility of outcomes that could happen. All right, let me check this out again. Oh, now this we found out, and I'm gonna cover on one more thing here. This is something quote unquote this is talking about relationships now. This is from my own notes, by the way. All right, this isn't from like a prompt or anything. This is what I've been rewriting down all day. "Quote unquote." Sometimes I don't feel loved, and that pushes me. Should I be with a girl? But if I join one too quickly, it could be dangerous. This again highlights on my own insecurities because there are some times that I really don't feel like what do you call this? I don't feel loved sometimes. I don't feel secure in myself sometimes. The really big problem with that is that could push me to join relationships too fast. I could push me to do a lot of things way too fast, and it could end really, really badly. All right, especially if I still have like four negative traits about me that I still need to fix over. I'm looking at it again. It could still pretty be dangerous at this. Best part is definitely make friends with a girl if she's definitely interested right now, and then maybe in a few months I'll think about it because once I fix that up about me, then because I'm ready to go. But it does highlight on like what three vulnerable topics about it: autonomy versus traditionalism, join relationships too fast, and my parents and my own friends' parents too. All right, and my own struggles, and it's really interesting looking at it again. All right, make sure to like and subscribe, y'all, if you guys want me to make more of these videos. I'm going to try to find some background music like Subway Surfers music. That is if I can get one that isn't overused or something like that. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Hold on.